All right, moving right along in our program, the next topic we are going to explore is how to meet corporate ESG goals with advanced energy, which is a very hot topic in Tennessee, especially. So I'd like to welcome to the stage our moderator for this discussion, Steve Seifried. He is the Tennessee Account Executive with Ameresco. He is also a board member. So Steve, come on up to the stage and I will let you take it away and introduce and lead your panel.
Thanks, Courtney, and Merry Happy Holidays to everyone. Ameresco is really proud to sponsor this panel, but I'm extremely interested to introduce this topic to some of you and reinforce some of the principles to others, but also introduce this distinguished panel of leaders who are doing work already in this space we call ESG. Today, we're going to be discussing what we call environmental, social, and corporate governance type activities. This ESG, as some people call it, and within Ameresco, we say doing well by doing good is our theme with regards to that. But bottom line is I'm having conversations with a lot of leaders across the state and up into Kentucky. And this is a huge paradigm shift for many of our partners. And bottom line is, a couple years ago, we'd ask some of our private sector partners about some of the advanced energy technologies we could help them with. And they said, the return on investment is just not there. Sorry, we need it in 2 or 3 years. This is a very different environment now. And so I'm curious who is driving these types of decisions within companies. Why is there so much momentum right now? And frankly, how is this getting done? So let me introduce myself and quickly let my panelists do the same. And we'll have a really nice conversation about this topic. I'm Steve Seifried. I work with Ameresco. I'm the solutions executive for our company. I work with a lot of higher ed municipalities and also electric utilities. And more recently, I'm seeing a whole lot of private sector interest in these types of activities. And so I'm helping them with their ESG goals and also how to implement projects to achieve that. So let's go ahead and start first with Lisa and then go to Adam and then Nicole. Please introduce yourselves.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be a part of this panel and part of this discussion. But my name is Lisa Lujan. I am the Environmental Health and Safety Manager with Clayton Homes. If you're not familiar with Clayton, we're a little bit more than most people think, generally speaking. We first sold our first home in 1956. Family operated until 2003 when we were acquired by Berkshire Hathaway. We're now one of the largest home builders in the U.S., producing both manufactured homes, site-built homes, and an entire supply division as well.
Lisa, Adam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. My name is Adam James. I'm the environmental coordinator with Tennsco in Dixon, Tennessee. If you're not familiar with Tennsco, what we do is we manufacture metal office furniture through the processes of stamping, forming, welding, and powder coating our individual parts for final assembly.
You and Nicole, jump on in. Nicole, are you able to? There you go. I think you're off mute now. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Thanks. Nicole, can you hear me? Nicole, can you hear me? All right. Well, we're having some difficulty with Nicole, so we'll go ahead and jump into this. Holly or someone, if you can help with connecting with Nicole, see what we can do to get her auditorially connected. So this topic is so interesting to me, and I'm really impressed with what I've seen Lisa Clayton Homes has done over the years. Maybe you can just give us a good understanding of what motivates Clayton to be engaged in this space and why now?
So the answer is really simple. It's our people. And it's about taking care of our team members, really. And that's kind of one of my favorite stories is how we even got started in the pursuit of, becoming ISO 14001 certified. It really goes back to about 2014, 2015, when the president of our home building group was actually doing a tour of one of our home building facilities. And of course, the construction of homes, it's kind of a messy process, or it can be sometimes. And as he's walking through the home building facility, he just stopped middle of the tour and looked around, and he's looking at this dust, the sawdust and what have you. And he's just like, we can do better than this. Our team members deserve better than this. We need to fix this. And that kind of began the drive to become, ISO 14001 certified, and began this whole environmental drive. It was more the work environment for our team members and looking out for the health of our team members that initially started this. And of course, it's just grown from there. And, it's moved on, obviously, from just the work environment to the greater environment. But I love that that's how it first just was initiated, because that's what drives this thoroughly, is going back to taking care of not only just our people, but the people in the surrounding communities. Steve, you're muted there.
Forgive me. One reason I was so excited about this panel was because we had 3 different companies with very different goals and aims. And Adam, you all are a 50-year-old family-owned company. Tell us how you started thinking about these issues and what really pulled you into, made you all serious about ESG type activities.
Well, thanks for that question, Steve. And I would love to be able to answer that as accurately as possible. But in my short time with Tennsco, I've been with the company going on 5 years now. So the history of, these green energy initiatives goes way further than my time with the company. But from what I've seen, and speaking with the president/owner of the company, Tennsco has always been willing to step out ahead of its peers and try something new if it makes sense. And a lot of times that looks like, LED retrofits, photovoltaic arrays, and most recently, lithium battery storage for demand shaving. Simply put, when I asked him what his driving factors were for stepping out of the box, stepping ahead of his peers and implementing these ideas, simply put, he says it's the right thing to do. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Well, we are always striving to be good corporate citizens. We always are. We don't have a written ESG policy that the company adheres to strictly. We are working on that moving forward. It's just more of a common understanding of being conscious of your own individual impact on the environment.
Well, and it's really admirable. And, obviously these investments cost money. And, you have to be you've got to plan accordingly for those kinds of activities. And let me just follow up on that. I mean, what's your impression, or what is your leadership team shared with when that light bulb went on, that maybe this is more important than just a bottom line, or that kind of, because batteries ain't inexpensive. So how do you make those how does the financial equation fit for you all?
Well, that happens in many ways, but in a nutshell, we are looking at ROI based on the lifespan of the technology, whatever that may be. So if photovoltaic array has a lifespan of 25 years, if we can see an ROI inside that 25 years, then we have a green light to go.
All right. So 25 years is kind of your benchmark for some of these technologies. And I'm glad to say, I think we have Nicole. Can you hear me, Nicole?
I can hear you all now. I can only hear Lisa for like the first 10 minutes. So
well, shoot. Well, please feel free to introduce yourself.
And we right before this, we literally had a fire alarm in our building, and so I had to move into my car, and so I very much apologize, but I didn't know what else to do in this 5 minutes of time. But I'm Nicole Bulgarino, and I head up our federal division and one of the leaders in this company for Ameresco with Steve, and I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee many years ago, but I always love to come back and watch our football team now that's actually doing well in Tennessee. But yeah, that it's been really exciting to watch this whole energy evolution over the past 20 years, and most excitingly in the past probably 2 years, and watching all the different things that are coming to be, and having drivers like ESG to push not only our government partners, but also commercial partners to really try to reach goals of decarbonization and doing other things from a bigger picture to help local communities in the same time that you're doing these great projects. So pleased to be with you guys on this panel today.
Well, and Nicole, I'll throw a question at you as well. I mean, you've seen this industry evolve quite a bit over the last 20 plus years. And specifically, why do you think now is the time for a lot of private sector companies that wouldn't normally take on these challenges?
I mean, there's so many. I've used this, I guess, statement a couple of times, but it seems like it's a storm coming together of a lot of different things. And one, just the evolution of technology. I think you were talking about some of this when I was catching up with you, Adam, on your about batteries and where they're coming. So when you have, technology out there that you didn't have before, and how much price is being driven down to allow these to become real part of solutions that make sense, I think a lot of more companies are looking at it from a resiliency standpoint, especially all of us living in this pandemic over the past few years and going through all these climate action events, whether it be a tornado or other storm. I mean, it just really resonates with people that there has to be something at your facility or your campus or your building to be able to sustain operations, whether it's preventing from a virus or whatever it may be. So I think that's put urgency combined with good advanced technology. And now you have drivers, you have, starting at the White House, drivers to reach decarbonization goals. You have also infrastructure that's been passed that's going, hopefully going to help states being able to do more from that perspective too. And then more recently, of course, the ESD drivers that most companies are setting up and trying to meet, and they're going to have to do it, quickly to meet their goals and to be part of that. So I think all those things coming together, it's an exciting time to be part of this industry.
And Lisa, I'm going to jump to you again and ask you a similar question to Adam. Clayton Homes has been a leader for many years, and in terms of quality of product, but also in terms of your ESG goals. But you also are a privately held company. So you've got not privately held, you're a share-owned company, and that often can give you a different perspective, the leaders. Because you're looking at Wall Street value often of your company. Certainly Berkshire Hathaway's got a longer, time frame or runway than some private firms. But tell me how the financial versus the return on investment calculations work for you all in a general sense, or how you balance those two is probably the best way to put it.
That's a great question, Steve, because it's interesting, generally speaking.
And please do speak up, because your microphone's really quiet for some reason. I don't really understand.
Yeah, why. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's a great question, because there is definitely influence, and I think the influence that we're seeing right now, kind of on the greater scale, is to really establish our carbon footprint. And set that date of when we feel like we can be net neutral, right? We're not there. That's really our focus for this year, is establishing that baseline and establishing that plan to move forward with. Up until really this year, a lot of those goals, though, we've really made site specific, just because our operations are very different within the company. From our supply centers to our home building group to, our Connect side, it's been very site specific. So those goals really vary from each individual site. These funding for that too, it gets very site specific again. I will use one of our home building group sites as an example. Our Clayton Savannah site, it's a home building facility. their program, at this point is completely sustainable on its own. In the 2020, which was a challenging year for all of us, just in general, that program alone was able to show a cost savings of $500,000. So that program is already just sustaining itself. So any initiatives that they're wanting to make or do at that facility, really that program's able to provide, which is pretty exciting to see. It took, several years to build it to that point, but really their first step into that program was in 2015, 2016. So if you look at just in those few years, to get that program to where it's able to sustain itself, it's pretty exciting. So we're trying to duplicate that at other home building facilities, but each specific site really has different goals. It'll be interesting though to kind of see as we roll out our reduction, our carbon footprint reduction. That's going to be obviously something that's a little more corporate driven. So it'll be handled a little bit differently. Also looking at the financial side of that, but we're just set up a little differently, so it's not as straightforward as one might think.
Thank you. And let me make one quick comment. If any of the audience would like to ask some questions, please feel free to do so in the Q&A. And I'm hoping we'll have a little time at the end for that. Adam, you mentioned one particular strategy, battery storage, to help shave your peak demand, which is a cost savings on your electrical side. What are some other, besides LED lighting, what are some other things that you've done in your manufacturing sites, either training for your staff or actual capital investment?
Yeah, so both of those actually. We do train all our employees in our direct impact and responsibility. Going back in time, I hope you don't mind if I tell this quick story.
Oh, please.
Whenever Al Gore released the documentary about global warming, the owner of Tennsco actually bought every employee a ticket to the movie theater to go see it.
Wow.
So it's been on the forefront of Tennsco's mind for a very long time now. So just that education of our employees is one step, and then proving technology is another, right? So we know what the capabilities are based on previous case studies of photovoltaic, lithium batteries, variable frequency drives on our manufacturing equipment, LED retrofits, things like that. And if we can make sense out of it, if we can see that ROI inside the lifespan of that technology, then we have the green light to move forward with it and make it happen. And as of today, every project I've been involved in, we have seen that ROI within the given amount of time.
That's really, really neat. It's a neat idea. And Lisa, let me ask you similarly, what are some projects you've done that you haven't mentioned, or interesting accomplishments you could feature that might be instructive to all of us?
Yeah, so again, starting with our home building group, a lot of things that Adam said there too. The retrofitting for the LED lighting. That's obviously that's one of our big things, because when you're dealing with large buildings and manufacturing, that's a big target for us. So doing those sort of things for us as well. It's a focus on just the reuse of materials lately as well has been a huge help for us. I'm struggling with the material shortages and such has made that a necessity for us.
Terrific. That's terrific.
Sorry.
No, this is great. And Nicole, I mean, you're out there, you meet a lot of different businesses, and you talk to both a lot of leadership. What are some interesting ideas, trends, or concepts that you think are helping companies to get more impact from their ESG goals, or some things that you've seen, the partnerships either Ameresco has been engaged in or others?
Yeah, I think the good trend that we're seeing across with folks that we're speaking with is embracing looking at everything as a whole rather than trying to just piecemeal, like rather than just putting solar on a rooftop, but actually even looking at the energy efficiency, like you guys just mentioned on lighting, and really trying to reduce loads as part of the solution. And I think that's resonating well with these customers too, to do it on a comprehensive plan and have, looking at it the entire portfolio, from how you're using energy to how you're supplying energy, and even water for that matter too. And so I think that's a good trend, and it's smarter to do it that way too, because you're going to get a bigger impact on your emissions goals and what you're able to do, as well as the financing part of it as well. The more that you can integrate together, we're also seeing even more companies looking at it just from the outside, like looking at EV infrastructure now and talking about doing that. And so it's opening up just how energy is looked at in a bigger picture too.
And in terms of financing and doing this work, are you seeing most companies investing their own resources? Are they how are they getting some of this work done that you think is kind of a creative way to do it?
I think most, I think it's both. I mean, they're using their in-house expertise, but they're also partnering with the right companies that can bring them the solutions that they can most benefit from, and bringing out private money, or combining third-party financing. I mean, especially with the low-cost capital that's out there right now. I think people are taking advantage of that. So it's just been a variety, and this really probably more depends on the customer or the end user than, how that would drive the different financing streams available. But the other thing too is there's a lot of incentives out there from utilities, from state and federal tax credits, and that are really helping these projects too.
Thank you. And all three of you are from award-winning companies, and those awards don't just happen. There are keys to those success. There are metrics and measures that you have to meet. Maybe you can talk, each of you, and we'll start with Lisa. Maybe you could talk about how you measure success in this arena, and also maybe an award that you're most proud of.
So yeah, we typically measure, just again, each of our sites are very site specific on their goals. But we have a lot of metrics that we use. One of the first goals that we had really for several of our sites is just the shooting for a zero waste, right? Getting to a zero waste. And so really kind of monitoring our reuse, our recycling, our reduction of natural resources, what have you. We're tracking those pretty closely. We do a monthly, we have quarterly meetings with just, each individual site is going to have an EMS committee that's going to discuss that. And one of the great things about that is the leadership is just really bought into it. So those EMS committees are going to be led by our, not just the on-site leadership, but actual team members from the production floor as well, because they're the driving force behind those programs. That's one of the things we're most proud of, I guess it would lead into, is this past year we were the recipients of the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Award for material management. And that was based on one of our facilities just really looking in a challenging year where materials were short, looking at our processes of how we could reuse even more of those materials in-house. The previous year, well, in 2019, this particular site, again, I'll go back to our Clayton Savannah facility, was actually awarded the Business Recycler of the Year by the Tennessee Recycling Coalition. So we felt like we had recycling really down to a science at this facility, right? And then, COVID hits and materials shortages. It really made us focus kind of internally on what our internal processes were. And so we really started looking at any waste that we still had and trying to identify literally department from department if there was any of those waste streams that we really could reincorporate into our production process. Even though we were doing really well at recycling, we still managed to reincorporate and reuse over 1.5 million pounds of material that we thought was scrap, but it really wasn't. we just hadn't looked closely enough at those individual processes. And so that's kind of a proud point for us, is just being able to go back even when you think you're doing really well at something, is to really focus on your internal processes, because there's always that room for improvement. And for us, it was just a major source of improvement that we never bothered to look any more closely at because we were already doing so well. So that's really kind of a finer point, and we're trying to do that in every area, not just in our waste or our production, but we're looking at any of those other areas where we can just the smallest things that end up having a larger impact.
We have, I think, around 2 minutes left for our overall presentation, but I do want to let Adam answer his as well. What's something you're proud of, and what you're really something you'd like to share?
Okay, yeah. We are very proud of our most recent Governor's Environmental Stewardship Award under the title of Pursuit of Excellence. We feel like that highlights our efforts over the years as a company, our green energy, green tech initiatives that we've implemented company-wide. Just that single award kind of highlights all of it for us, and puts it on the forefront of everybody's mind here at Tennsco to keep us on track moving forward. And, some of the ways that we measure our success is simply by tracking our utilities. I mean, that is the easiest and most effective way to track your success in, greenhouse gas emission reductions. If we're using less electricity, there's less emissions. If we're using less natural gas, there's less emissions. And, just simply doing it that way is very effective for us.
And Nicole, I'll let you answer similarly. What are some things you think would be instructive that Ameresco can be proud of, and also maybe
yeah, I mean, for us, we're most proud when our customers are getting awards, because that means we've done our job well for them and they've been recognized by that. But I think for us, like being, when we're named like a leader in the industry for energy solutions or energy as a service, then we've done our job well, because we want to be leaders in this, and we want to help partner with companies and to try to help them get to there. And it also allows us to meet our goals as well, or our own ESG plan. So probably one of the things that we track that is great is our greenhouse gas reduction that we've done for our customers, and seeing that number grow every single day is great to be a part of that.
Well, this is really inspiring to me to hear each of you speak, and it really helps me to recommit how I approach prospects and customers, to really dig a little deeper and try to find even more impact in the work that we do. Nicole, I hope they let you back in the building eventually.
I know.
I mean, I'm sure you can get a lot of work done in the backseat of your car, but it's probably not real comfortable. Adam, thank you very much for your time, your expertise. Lisa as well. We're all very grateful that you're willing to share your expertise and your success with us. I'm sure, and just so everybody knows out in the audience, these three folks are super accessible. I am too. If you have any questions or follow-up, feel free to send us an email, and we'd be glad to give you some insights or further information. But thanks very much, all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Steve. That was a really great discussion. I enjoyed that a lot. So thank you all.